Salvete sodales. So, let's talk about virtual assessment and more. Let's do a thing that Dr. Otto Scharmer at MIT calls bending the beam of observation back on ourselves. So let's do just a little bit of self-assessment today. Because one of the things that I know you guys know, I know we all know it, but we sometimes don't do it, is that if we don't take care of ourselves, it's really hard to take care of others. And teachers are caretakers. We like taking care of others. Sometimes we forget that we have to take care of ourselves first. And everybody has a bunch of stories. I used this slide template for a presentation quite a few years ago now at a conference. And I remember saying about, and I kept that default picture of the houses. And I remember saying, there's a story. There's a bunch of stories in every one of those houses. And there's a bunch of stories in every one of those offices and apartments that you can see behind them. And don't you just want to know what all the stories are? Well, everybody has a bunch of stories. Not just houses, not just buildings, but people have stories too. Teachers have stories. Is your story working? Is it helping you? Or is it getting in the way? So there are a bunch of stories that teachers tell ourselves, right? We tell ourselves the good teacher story. What do good teachers do? What are good teachers like? What do good teachers not do? And we want to be good teachers, right? So we want to do the things that good teachers do and not do the things that they don't do. Then there's the bad teacher story. I mean, because we all had a bunch of good teachers in our lives, but we probably had a few bad ones too. We may even have had some coworkers that we wouldn't tell them to their face, but we think about them in the bad teacher category. And we look at the things that they do and the ways that they are, and we think, well, I don't want to be like that. So we have our bad teacher story. We have a grading and assessment story. What do grades represent? What is the purpose of assessment? What should they be like? What should they feel like? Should they be a great big heavy thing that lands with a sickening thud on the desk? So we have a grading and assessment story. We have a planning story. What's the right way to plan for our classes? What do good teachers do? Good teachers like me, right? Because I don't want to do the things that bad teachers do that aren't like me. And maybe, there are good teachers that aren't like me and they do something differently. But I've got a story about what planning should be in management of classes, right? You would call it classroom management, but if you're teaching a remote situation, you don't really exactly have a classroom anymore, do you? So that one's probably changed a little bit. You may be trying to do the things that good teachers do to manage their classroom and thinking, we got a problem here because there's no classroom. So now what? Well, we're going to bend that observational beam back on ourselves just for a minute. And I'm going to ask you, are these stories serving you or hurting you? And to get there, I want you to take just a moment and I want you to answer each of these questions honestly with a number on a scale from 1 to 5. 5 is this is totally me right now. 1 is, no, that's not me at all. Right now, anytime. But 5 is this is totally me right now, and then obviously 2, 3, and 4 are in the middle, right? So there are 10 statements. Just keep track of these numbers. First statement, I feel completely overwhelmed with everything that's changed in COVID-era schools. Second, I know I used to be a good teacher pre-COVID. Maybe I still am, but I definitely used to be a good teacher pre-COVID. Third, I'm afraid I've turned into a bad teacher, even though it's not my fault. Keep that same scale from 1 to 5 as we go on. I'm spending too much time planning, finding materials, and trying to grade stuff. Obviously, you get to decide how much is too much, but I'm spending too much time. I'm spending a lot more time on those things, the planning, the finding the materials, the grading, all the other stuff, than I did in pre-COVID times. I'm spending too much of my own money on digital resources. Again, you get to decide what's too much, but you know in your heart, if you feel like you're spending too much, you are, right? Just like if you're spending too much time. I'm spending a lot more money on digital resources than I did pre-COVID. Just a few more questions. Again, same scale from 1 to 5. It's affecting my relationships with the important people in my life. My family, my friends. You fill in the blank of who's important. It is all this stuff, right? The too much time, if that's a factor, the too much money, if that's a factor, just that feeling that I'm not as good a teacher as I ought to be and I used to be and I want to be. It, one of those things or all of those things, is affecting relationships with important people in my life. Same scale from 1 to 5. Everything seems difficult and complicated and hard, much more so than it did in pre-COVID times. Things are more difficult, complicated, and hard than they used to be. One more question. I just wish somebody could tell me what I'm doing right and how I can actually improve. I wish somebody could tell me what I'm doing right and how I can actually improve. I put that one in because most principals, I'm an old teacher, right? So I got a lot of people I know who became principals and district level administrators and stuff. And most of them are either good at telling you what you're doing right or how they think you should improve, right? But very, very few people are good at both of those things. It's saying, yeah, you're doing this well, you might consider changing that. So you'll end up with a number between 5 and 50 because they're 10 statements and you rated each one on a scale from 1 to 5. And so for those of us who are mathematically inclined, that's the range. And if that number is 35 or greater, you're probably saying to yourself, uh-oh, I got a problem. Well, the good news is there's a solution. Help is on the way. And you can either get in touch with me today and find out, we can talk about what that help can be because it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Or if you need to, you can wait because I'm going to have in upcoming videos a description of a couple things, a couple forms of help. But no matter whether your score was 5, 20, 39, 50, you added a level 6, chose it for all of them, and had a score of 60 out of 50 because you are an overachiever, like some people I know really well. Either way, here's the thing. We're going to get you out of the overwhelm and we're going to get you into a peaceful place. Whether that peaceful place is like any of the pictures that you see here, I love them all. My favorite is, I can't decide which one is my favorite, but I think it's the one on the bottom right with just that peaceful looking room and the French doors leading out to the courtyard. The only thing I would want is like some mountains. And anyway, no matter what your peaceful place is, we're going to identify it and we're going to find a way to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. Because it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be this hard. And you do not have to do this work alone. So until we talk to each other next time, hang in there because you're important and precious and we need you. Your students need you, but much more so, the important people in your life, your family and your friends need you. You don't have to do it alone. And until we talk to each other again, Waleting Sodales.